Well, hello, and welcome to Stop, Let's Team Up. And I'm here with Jim Fetters, and if you follow me on Twitter, he is Jimbo Fett, and he will chime in on some of my things. But we have been chatting Legion, so I've invited him on to talk Threeboot, because he is, well, first say hi, Jim.
So, hi, everybody. Hey, Ross. Thanks for having me on. I'm Jim Fetters. I am at JimboFett87 is actually the full Twitter handle, but
Okay.
yeah, Jimbo Fett's easier on Twitter.
It's a good handle.
Yes. With all the Star Wars stuff going on, it works out really well.
Oh yeah. I joke with my podcasting partner on the Runcible Report, Jeff. We have done, when we get tired of talking Doctor Who, we always jump in and we'll do a random Star Wars one. Because me and him have opinions on different movies. He's 10 years younger than I am, and I'm old enough. I rode my bike to see it.
As did I.
In '77.
Actually, my parents drove me. But
I lived close to a rerun theater right next to this place called Thieves Market, and my comic shop was in there. So.
Nice.
So, but he was reading. We got discussing Threeboot and other Legion things, and I've been on my Legion adventures, been going through, and I have never really deep dived into Threeboot. So we've been planning to get together and talk about the first 12 issues, which is basically the first arc of it, and I'm excited to talk about it. And I'm just finishing a reread because I read it, and then it was a couple of weeks before we got together, and so I had to reread it really quickly during lunch breaks and stuff. This on top of my other stuff. So first, Jim, I'm going to ask you what I asked everybody. What was your into comics? How did you become a comic fan? That first comic.
Sure. So I guess there's two ways into this story for me. So back in the 70s, I was very much a casual comic book reader, right? My parents would grab things off the rack that they thought I'd be interested in, or that I thought might be looking cool to read on a trip or something like that. And so there was a various assortment of Defenders and Avengers and Batman and you name it, right? Where and even a couple of Legions in there too, because I definitely vividly remember as a 10-year-old boy, Saturn Girls costume, right? The bikini costume. It was very iconic, and it left an impression.
The first truly inappropriate and not tactically sound costume ever.
Right. So that was a very seminal moment in my life. But oddly enough, after that, I kind of dropped out of the comic scene for a good bit, pretty much through the end of high school. And then in 1989, the Tim Burton Batman movie came out. Okay. And that basically changed my life. Once that happened, I was in college at that point and went to the local comic book store in Morgantown, Craig's Comics at the time, which I don't think is there anymore. But it was I very much remember picking up the Lonely Place of Dying miniseries that was going on across.
It was such a good arc.
So fantastic. And then I picked that from there. I picked up and went back and got Year 3 and just lots of stuff from there. And
that's a good time to be a Batman fan.
Absolutely. It was kind of the Renaissance.
Was Colin? Is it when Gene Colan was doing detective a bit?
I don't. In fact, that was Norm Brayfogle was the artist.
Okay, it was after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I just remember that experience of you having Jim Aparo on the art for the main Batman title, and then you have this wild, very, very distinct visual style in Detective with Norm Brayfogle, which was very angular and just sweeping capes and motions and darkness, and it was just fascinating to watch. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do this. And it was just fascinating stories and fascinating art. It was just great. I loved it. And then from there, of course, that was the beginning of where DC started to do like 8 of everything Batman every month.
So, they're back in that mode right now.
Yeah, exactly. But that's when the big events started happening. After Crisis, I was coming on after Crisis, so it was a very different time frame, because then you started having the event things. The death of Superman happened, in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Got all onto that. got into all the Superman stories as well. So I was now
That's
collecting.
another good time to be a I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
I'm a big fan up through the Diamond era.
Right.
I will defend it because
Right.
it's you got three great writers. You got Byrne, you got Wolfman, you got Ordway, and then you get Louis Simonson, and then Dan Jurgens.
Mm-hmm. Yes, fantastic and great art. It's just excellent.
I bought all 4 of those Man of Steel hardcovers recently.
And they're coming out with a new one, I think, this year if it hasn't released already. I'm almost thinking about getting that because it has the whole Death and Return arc all
That's
together.
what I'm looking for. I'm trying to find a cheap copy of Exile hardcover because that goes right after those 4 Man of Steels and right before the Diamond, and I think they're gonna do the Diamond era in omnibus form or big hardcovers, which I'm for. I had a guest on it, who was doing the David Banks, who's doing the Micronaut restoration project, and he calls it shelf porn.
Well, we've all posted pictures of our shelves online.
So what was your first Legion?
So very shortly after this time frame that we're talking about, I was working in Connecticut, and a coworker who was also a comics fan said, "Hey, there's this thing called Legion of Super-Heroes. You might want to check this out," because we would talk comics and stuff like that. Because in addition to all the comics that I had been reading and was into, I was also a big sci-fi nerd. Between with Star Wars, Star Trek, the role-playing games, and all that kind of stuff. And so I picked it up, and I want to say I'm almost 100% sure about this, but I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. The first Legion book I very much remember buying with my own money was I want to say it's Legionnaires 34. That might be wrong, but it's the Girls' Night Out issue where of the reboot where the Legion gets their flight rings from Brainy, and they decide they want to have a night off, and then all the girls go out and try to get into a club and fail miserably. So, and it was a fun read, and I really liked. I love Jeff Moy's art, and it was just wonderful.
Well, that's cool. I was thinking maybe you got a tail end of the original run, but you started in the reboot.
Yes, absolutely. It was several issues in, and so that's why I've always kind of considered the reboot to be mine. I was aware of the Legion, right, as a Superman reader and other things, right. I knew who they were by this time, but I didn't have that essence of saying, oh yeah, this is my thing. But it was after that reboot happened, and then so the reboot happens. I start reading these books. And then I start going back and going essentially falling down the rabbit hole at that point and collecting all those old issues.
It's a deep hole. Yeah,
absolutely.
My first is Superboy 1. I'm gonna forget the number now. Crap, 195. It's the Return of Timberwolf. And it's a Cockrum. It's the first time you see him in Cockrum's costume.
Okay.
And it's still Superboy. It hasn't. I think the Legion of Super-Heroes just had been on. And that was the first one I can remember. The way I remember it, my dad had come back from Vietnam. He was a Marine colonel at that point. He was a colonel, full bird. And he came back from Vietnam, so we went and met him at Pendleton, and he had to stay at Pendleton with his battalion, or whatever he was commanding in the 2nd Marine Division, for another year. You did a year in the jungle, and then you did a year back at home. And then he was transferred to the Army War College in Pennsylvania, at the old Indian school, where Jim Thorpe was buried and all this stuff. So we were going across country, and we stopped in New York to see his dad. And my brother Hugh just gave me comic books to get me to leave him the hell alone. And the first comics I remember are that Legion. It's Superboy 195, and it's Avengers 105.
Okay.
And I read Legion religiously from there, and then I because me and him had merged the comic collection, and I was a little more good about going into our local comic shop and finding cheap back issues, and look, I found a book, that goes here and this, and he was like fine, because I was spending my money and he didn't have to do it, and he found some, and I read it straight through, but the first Levitz run was kind of where I went, ooh,
yeah, this is something special.
There's something going on here. He knows, and I'm a big Roy fan. I'm a big Super Team fan. I love it. There's my medium. But there are people, Levitz, Claremont, Thomas, Englehart, from when I was a kid, Steve Gerber. I'm a big fan of his Defenders. I think it's some of the most imaginative superhero comics ever written. But you find that groove. You find a writer of a certain quality who knows how to tell a dynamic story with a lot of characters.
Yeah.
And every
Which
character
is hard.
And every character has a unique personality. Everything that he does to them adds on to the character. They didn't reset.
Yeah.
Because when in the 60s comics at the end, it had to reset.
Yeah.
It's like original Star Trek. Everything has to reset at the end of the episode.
Exactly.
There are no consequences to any action at all ever. But in Legion, you had romances, and it was and I think Shooter could do it. I think Shooter's the first one who really, I like the stuff pre-Shooter, but Shooter starts. But when I got to Levitz, boom, and then there was Levitz when the second time, and him and Giffen got onto it, and that's where I think, because that's when the book, I was working in a comic shop then, and the only books bigger than Legion were Titans, and X-Men.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, because I don't think back in the Silver Age, in that late Silver Age period, those were some of the only comics that had consequences where you did see some relationships just start, right? Pharaoh Lad died, right? Of course, there was a little bit of a backstory behind that whole thing, right? In backroom politics there, but you had these things happen that, eventually it might not be a direct carryover from issue to issue, but several issues down the line, they could point back to this event happening, and then you see they're keeping track of this stuff through the universe. And then, but I was just thinking about something too. So issue 195, I think I was able to pick that up last year at the Baltimore Comic Con.
Molecule Master is the villain.
I think so. I have to check my my stash under the desk back home. There is the reason I went searching was because I've been doing most of my reading on the DC app now, right? Because it's so convenient to look at everything. But there's this
everything
gap
after 1975.
Exactly. There's this gap of issues from Superboy from around 195, right, to like I want to say like 230 or something like that. So
there's some weird holes. I'm like going.
Yeah.
Haven't you skipped? But what I was talking to Marty Gray, or chatting with him, and I brought up the point is maybe it's because it's not been put in an archives. And he's like, well, maybe they haven't scanned all the Golden Age. I said, but Marty, man, I've got every All-Star Comics with the Justice Society of America on my shelf. They've scanned it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, it's in the old Legion archives from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I have it. That's
and it's expensive, but the quality isn't as great as the new Omnis. So.
Well, I have a whole run. And I have replaced, but I don't know if I want to replace for the Omnis. I would like to get the second printing of the one issue where the Legion is bigger and higher, because when you look at it on my shelf, it looks like it's giving you the middle finger.
with the headquarters, you mean? Is that the one?
Oh my God! But I've got the 5 year later hardcover in the Omni, right. Which is I wouldn't put a down payment. I'm putting a layaway for the next one, which comes out in about 6 or 8 weeks.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that because that's going to get into the reboot.
Yes.
Because
Legion that one will end at 0 hour actually. So.
Oh my God! It's like 1,800 pages. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because my sweet spot is pretty much Carrie Bates, Cockrum, Grell through, but to me, pretty much Levitz 2 to the end of the Magic War. That is, to me, I love it. I haven't read it in a long time, and one reason I do my Legion Adventure is I haven't had mental bandwidth in a long time to be a heavy reader anymore.
Right.
Working a lot, working in the pandemic, you get kind of like, I need easy someone tell me a story. I don't have, I love stories, so I like movies, and I'm a big TV nerd, sci-fi nerd. But I was like, I want a reason, because I have done Legion reruns from Adventure 247 deep into Legion, into this reboot, at least a dozen times.
That's great. I've only done it once, which just finished recently. So I guess about a year ago, as part of the whole pandemic nostalgia, I picked up the Silver Age omnibus, the 3 volumes, and then basically started reading them. Right, and then when I finished those, I hunted down those issues at the Comic-Con that I was able to find out and fill in the gap, and then start going through the DC app and kind of reading everything. And I finished, I want to say sometime back in several months ago. I finished up, and reading that from the very beginning, which I'd never really done reading everything before, was quite a journey, especially when you have those big moments happen, like the death of Karate Kid or the death of Superboy and things like that. Just because I had a lot of these issues, like I was saying prior, right, when I got into the reboot and I started just grabbing stuff anything I could find that looked interesting. I could read it, I appreciated it, but I didn't have context. And having the complete
context is king.
It's amazing. Yeah, and to understand, but not only the context within the classic Legion run, but also in the context of the reboot, right? Because when you go to the reboot, you had that first 5 or 6 years there where the writers were kind of riffing off of classic adventure stories.
They're retelling the history. Yeah, and they did it well. I loved the reboot. I adored the reboot because it was so true to Legion, and it was like it was cleaned up, streamlined, written and written in a modern vernacular.
Right.
Less.
Right. I agree too.
Less. And I say it all the time, and when I'm doing the older issues in my Legion adventure, it's a quaint 1960s story. It's a quaint It's when we perceive the world as a better place.
Right.
And I don't say the world was a better place. We perceived it. And Americans, we are by nature truly pessimistic and overly optimistic when we look back.
Yeah, it's that idealized version of what the past looked like.
We have to have. It's like we have to have a happy ending that our stories. Everything has to reset. That's very much of an American storytelling. You have to tie it up. Everybody must be happy at the end.
Right.
When not all stories are happy. You don't need. I mean, a nice, warm, happy, warm, cuddly. And I like reading an old Silver Age Legion story because I do get a sense of, oh, I feel better. It's nice. It's fun. They had a good time. I think a lot, and what I liked about the reboot was it was still current. It was less 80s edgy than other comics at the time, where everything had to be, I've seen Alan Moore talk about it and Frank Miller go, I didn't mean for every comic to be this way. I was just, and Alan Moore goes, I was living in Thatcher's England. This is all that was going to come out of me.
Yeah.
I didn't mean for it, because he loves Silver Age. You get all these cranky Scottish comic writers, man. They love Silver Age Superman and Batman. They love it. Grant Morrison, it's his favorite stuff. That's why All-Star Superman's so good. Yeah. It's a love letter to it. And I have a buddy who doesn't get it, and he's a huge Threeboot fan. And that's the only reason he's ever read. Really? Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't.
It's interesting that you say that. I mean, because I, like you, I really enjoyed that first batch, I would say from the reboot. And by the way, I just looked up the Legionnaires issue that I picked up was issue number 23.
Good.
The Girls' Night was written by Tom.
I know the cover. So, I remember it being a great issue.
Yeah, yes, it's Spark in her Jeff Moy Peter Pan outfit, the other girls, which is very nice. But so at this time, I guess it was till about 1996 or so when issue 97, when about issue 100 came out of Legion of Super-Heroes from the Mothership book, and everything was great. And then things kind of lost focus a little bit, and then DNA, Abnett and Lanning came in, and they they added a lot of drama, but it was a lot of deconstruction. And deconstruction isn't really my thing in comic books, kind of like, Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns and all that stuff.
It gets old after a while. I like to see it once in a while, but when that's all you do, some of my favorite. But then I'm a big Astro City fan, which isn't deconstruct. Is that technically deconstruction?
I haven't really read that one, I have to say. I have to admit
Oh my
that.
God, I'm a huge Busiek. It's basically Busiek, Brent Anderson, and Alex Ross create their own universe.
Yeah.
And it has all. It's more It's more like they did that. It's a study in archetypes.
Okay.
It's kind of like Alan Moore's Supreme, but not as over the top.
Right, or like what's Invincible over on Image, or
it's
or like The Boys.
It's more, Image is more like late 90s, 80s superhero redone with a little bit of Peter Parker in it, where Astro City is very much birthed from a Silver Age love.
Okay.
It's if you ever get it, read them, because they're not. It's like they have a Superman and they have a super teams and it all takes place in the city called Astro City, and their plot lines, and it jumps around, and the characters age in real time.
Okay.
So the first one is 25 years ago. All those heroes are now 25 years older. If the issue is set in the present, they will go backwards. And it's really, I've got it all in hardcover, and it's something I love, and it's something the Confessor one, which is their kind of hint toward Batman and Robin. It's kind of like, that one's worth it because it's Batman and Robin fight the Kree-Skrull War with vampires.
Huh.
And it all works. And I'm reading it. My brother went, "Is this?" And I went, "It's Kree-Skrull War with Batman, and he's dressed like a monk. What the hell is this?" But I'm a big Brent Anderson fan.
I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah. So. He did Kazar in the 80s and 90s. That Marvel. There was a nice Marvel run, Kazar the Savage. They don't reprint it because the guy that wrote it ended up being problematic. He's in prison.
Oh.
Yeah. He was the guy that wrote. Yeah. Did you ever read the Comic Reader? It was a magazine out in the 80s and 90s.
No, I was
he
more
was,
of a wizard
He was
person.
their critic, and then he became a writer, and then he did a couple things, and they went, "No, you're going to jail for 20 years."
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I really have always that was a tangent. I really liked, even after I didn't mind 0 Hour. I didn't mind the Magic War. I think it was at the point where I was like, it is time for a creative change. And I was like going, I'm enjoying this, but I think you're running out of big things to do, Keith.
Well, think of all the drama that happened when the version 4 started, right? Mm-hmm. Where you have, they had this great concept of let's age the Legion and let's bring in this other Legion as well, the younger clones or whatever the concept was.
Or whatever he wanted to do, which was the clones were the real one, the kid, younger, and they went, no, you're not doing that because it's not a good idea.
And then you had the Superman editing team kind of stepping all over what the Legion wanted to do, and so it caused all these kinds of weird things to happen. I mean, it's its own great thing in and by itself, right? But there's so much outside interference that I don't think that it may have caused more problems in the end than made it better. I don't know. I think that's a personal.
It is,
preference.
And I understand why people. It's not my favorite stuff. I enjoy it, but I found the reboot to be a wonderful palate cleanse and still be very true to all the aspects of Legion that I liked. And the characters were just younger versions of characters I liked. They didn't really change much. My only problem, I think I have issues with Abnett Lanning, what they did to Element Lad. Yeah. Because Element Lad was my guy.
Oh,
but
gotcha.
The reboot Element Lad isn't my Element Lad. My Element Lad is really the Silver Age one.
Right.
Because he's a little different in the reboot. But I still liked him. You know, and then Threeboot, even 12 issues in, I don't really like him. He's not a very likable character. To me, he's a cookie cutter. Yeah. We need this type of personality, and we're going to dump it and give it to him.
Sure.
But
exactly. I mean, I think my if we go through the kind of the arc of the reboot and you get to Abnett and Lanning, they made that big splash with Legion Lost, it was a super dramatic story.
It's
right?
a great,
I mean,
it's a great,
it's iconic.
it's a great story. I like it, and I don't mind that he goes evil. I like the idea of them going mad. I'm one of those ones where Hal went crazy and became Parallax. People, you can't have him be the bad guy. He wants his home be vaporized.
Yeah.
That's not be happy Hal 5 minutes later.
It's amazing he didn't go crazy earlier.
Yeah, you're wondering why most of them don't have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Exactly.
So
it was. I think for me though, it was just more once the actual monthly happened. Just I think too many storylines got drug out too long, and there was a little bit too much of the deconstructive darkness going on. And I kind of wanted to get back to more of the not necessarily lighthearted, right? Because that first year of the reboot ended with the Daxamite War, right? Where you have people Legionnaires getting fried, and so and I remember when that came out, the online community from our Legion perspective went nuts because this is mid 90s and the internet was barely what it is today, and people on the message boards were just freaking out about the events from the Legionnaires Annual #2, and it was something. It was impactful. It was a big.
See, that's what I like about Legion. That Legion, you could have impact.
Yeah.
Because they weren't mainstream comics. Comic fans bought it. So the way I saw Legion fans, or you were a super team fan, person who wanted a multi-character book, which is what. And I'm not big on a lot of solo books. I never have been. They're ones I've liked. They're eras.
Right. Yep.
Superman post-crisis, I liked it a lot. Flash post-crisis,
yeah,
I frickin' loved.
Yeah, that was some good stuff. I need to go back and read some of that. Those were Flash was another one that I collected a lot.
No, but Wally as Flash is my Flash. I don't really care for Carrie Bates and Fantino's Barry.
Right.
It wasn't, and Kyle's my Green Lantern, or was my Green Lantern. I liked Kyle. Hal's a bit of a, they're boring. Yeah. They're not as.
It's kind of a stuffed shirt.
Yeah, it just never spoke to me. But I think because Legion always had, there were Superman. I think one of the problems was with sometimes, like you were saying, this DC, the Superman editors taking Superman out of the mix and not having kind of like an overlap. They tried. I mean, but post-crisis there are a lot of tries, and Legion suffered from the stutter step of, we tried. Ooh, that's not too good. Let's backpedal a little bit, and then try like Mon-El as Valor. See, I like Mon-El as being Mon-El, and I liked Laurel Gand. I really liked Andromeda. Yeah, because I never really Supergirl wasn't in a lot.
Right.
So
even before, that's right.
Yeah, I just didn't. Okay, and when it was big deal when she came back in the Great Darkness saga, around there, and I was like, wow, she's a cool character. Oh wait a minute, you got someone writing her who
knows how to write.
Yeah, he knows how to write. Yeah. Well, but
absolutely. I think. From that perspective, I think going from I guess that lighter version of the Legion into more of a darker realm, and then kind of having them come back out again, is a really good journey. And I think that having people that can write that very well makes all the difference. And I know I kind of dumped a little bit on Abnett and Lanning a little bit ago, but I did do a full reread of like all their stuff and kind of broke down all their stories, and I came away with a much better impression.
I think they were a great pair.
Yeah, they work together. I don't think they're working together.
No, they do not speak of one another well.
But yeah, that's
because Lanning doesn't write any comics at all. Abnett still does.
Plotter and inker, right? I mean, he did more of the illustration.
Yeah, but when they were doing, they're good at sci-fi.
Yes.
I mean, and they're Marvel sci-fi. They're Marvel. My brother was a big Jim Starlin fan. So in our house, we had all the cosmic heroes, and I'm a big Guardian. I read Valentino's Guardians of the Galaxy religiously.
Right.
Because it was just, it was kind of that where everything else is dark and creepy, we're just going to have a kind of Silver Age Marvel sci-fi.
Right.
So did you we're going to get toward Threeboot because that's what we're here to talk about. When you were reading, I was not actively collecting when this came out. I mean, I was collecting certain things, so I always made sure I was getting my Justice League, my Avengers, my Teen Titans to a point. I finally fell off of Teen Titans with a new the Rebirth, which is I can't read it. I can't read any of it. It's just Abnett came and did a thing with all the characters from the Silver Age up to modern, and I read that and I went, this is just, you've so damaged the brand. It's, I think, my time, and I read, it is what it is. It happens. I'm almost 60. It doesn't really mean you don't cater to me. Get new readers in.
Yeah, for me, what happened was my life kind of really started to change around the year 2000, 2001 when all this stuff was coming out. So I was starting a family and, working at a new job that was like really taking a lot of my time. So I didn't have as much time for this. And so what would happen is I would go and like every several months come back and just get a bunch of new books, right, and kind of pick them up. And then that gap kind of got wider. And then,
I've got 2 short boxes full of comics that I haven't read.
Exactly. And then, but what I found was that I would pick up these Abnett and Lanning books, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're killing Element Lad, and they've mutated Kinetics, who's one of my favorite characters.
My God, I hated
that. All of this stuff, and I'm like, okay, and so I kind of, to some degree, just flipped through and started blowing them off without really appreciating what was in there. And then so I came back and then really, like, this past year, really read them and really appreciated them for what they were. But then of course you get to this point where they get kicked off the book, and Gail Simone comes in and wraps does a real quick wrap up story first for a few issues, and then they're done, and the reboot's gone, right? And then but of course, because little known to really hardly anybody, Mark Waid and Barry Kitson were contracted to this new iteration of the Legion that started in 2005, and so that's
I'm getting confused because I forgot it was Gail Simone. But it's the end of the Threeboot where Shooter comes back, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Which I made the comment that I hated it online, and someone kind of defended it and went, "Really?" I just remember it being terrible.
I don't remember that. This is part of the. I'm glad. This is why I'm kind of glad that you asked me to do this, because it really kicked me in the butt to pick up the Threeboot again and really start digging into it. Because my intent is to read all through. I guess it's through issue 50.
Because it's not that long a run.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to get back and really understand, because we did this reread, and I remember the main things that I remembered when I first picked it up, why I liked it, why I didn't. But there's a big gap afterwards that I don't really remember very much of, and I'm looking forward to reading
the gap
that
between Supergirl, because after this, it's just. When does Supergirl and the Legion start?
She comes in about issue 15 of this run, I want to say. 15 or 16.
Okay, so it is close. Yeah. It's just the one arc and then some filler and then her stuff. Yep. And I remember getting that and thumbing through it. And because I like Peter David's Supergirl. I didn't mind. Maybe there are 3 of us on the planet who liked it, that she was a devil. And I like Peter David.
Right.
He's a good writer. I mean, I'm a huge Mark Waid fan. If Mark Waid writes a book, I check it out.
Yeah.
I read
Same.
it.
This is Mark Waid writing this is half the reason that I like it as much as I do.
I think it reads better for me this time through.
For sure.
Because it's him.
Yes.
My thing is, we'll end up mentioning Bendis. I'm a big Brian Bendis fan when I think he's focused. And I don't think he's always focused.
All I will say is that I don't think I've read anything that any of his stuff that is focused. I would like to see something that
Powers is very focused. His own stuff is very focused. Powers, the first couple years of Powers is amazing. It's also got gorgeous oming art.
If there's anything I can say great about Bendis, that he picks great illustrators.
He does, and I liked Alias a great deal. His Jessica Jones are good.
Right. Yeah. But,
But
exactly.
but his Avengers, one arc I'd love, and the next one is like nothing happened for 12 issues.
Right.
He writes for the trade.
Yep.
And
yeah,
that's,
for sure. Exactly.
And
in fact,
you know,
to that point, I gave my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, I gave her the first couple episodes of her issues, rather, of the Justice League versus the Legion title, and she came back and said, "Well, this is okay, I guess, but I really want to read the whole thing when it's all done." Right.
Yeah, because he cannot write a single issue. But I think that I'm gonna not blame that all on him. I think a lot of comics are not. They're afraid of but they're afraid of thought balloons. They're afraid of characters talking.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of show don't tell. But sometimes you have to do both.
Yep.
It's a narrative.
100%.
You have to have some exposition to explain what's going on. I'm not a big Jim Lee fan. I think his covers. I think his art is okay.
Yeah.
It's dynamic, but his stories suck because he sometimes has too many 2-page spreads. So, you know, it's just Where's the art? Where's the art? Where's the story? This is a narrative. This is a narrative format. You need to tell me what's going on. And, you know, sometimes I'm reading some Silver Age and I go, oh my God, this stuff's overwritten. Yes. But it's written, you know, like I read a Gardner Fox or a Jerry Siegel or a Bob Haney. If you've ever read...
Even this book, this book here that we're talking about, right? You look through the some of these issues I'm going through, and you know, as you know, right, I've been trying to do some of these breakdowns of these Threeboot issues, and it's like cutting through a 2-inch steak, getting through some of these things.
Yeah,
right?
that's
because
kind of
there's
why
so much stuff.
And I think me reading them in quick succession. But, no, because rereading it, he is doing character development.
Yes.
People are having conversations.
100%.
Does it pass the Bechdel test for the women? I'm going to put this in because my best friend's a woman, and she said you have to, and she taught me about that, and I read now and go, oh, they're talking about boys.
Yeah.
2021. It's a little dated, but I like what he understands the characters.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the first 6 issues is really pure setup.
It totally is. It is 100%.
Because once you get to 6, it starts moving faster.
Because if you look at the structure of kind of all these stories as they progress, and this includes so the trade, the number 1 trade here has actually has a kind of a prelude, right? That comes from it comes from one of the Teen Titans Legion crossovers, that the last one of the reboot, right? And that ends where a scenario where the Legion is trying to hold back this time vortex and is floating in the void, and Shikari, the Dawnstar clone for the reboot, loses the Legion, and so she's drifting off into the void, and then so she comes into this mysterious metropolis, and of course it's the metropolis.
Is that Superboy in the Legion?
No, that was the Teen Titans Universe of Blaze, I want to say.
Oh yeah, okay, I've got that.
Right.
Got that. Okay.
Yeah, it was the last big crossover for the. It was by Jeff Johns, and it was for the Reboot Legion and the Titans at the time, and so it kind of melds into this story of this kid who's rebelling against his parents, and it kind of sets the stage of this weird dystopia where everything is so perfect and so under control that the kids hate it and then they rebel. And that apparently is the foundation for the Legion.
Okay, so, I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to go check that because I don't have the trade. I would like to get this. If they do an Omni, I'll probably buy it.
Yeah. Oh, they have the. I want to say you can probably still get the Volume 1 Omni, which is the first 6 plus the Prelude. So.
Okay.
And that should be in there, right? So, but if the Titans one, you can just get online, right? Everything I read, I just read on.
Well, I still had those because I thought it was pretty, and I like Universo.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Actually, this is the universe. Actually, that's a different one. I'm glad you mentioned that. There are 2 Titans Legion crossovers. There's the one where Universo is kind of the center of the attraction, and there's the other one where kind of everything's falling apart. I think it's a big Fatal Five or Fatal 500.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go look. When I'm done, I'm gonna go into my comic room, and it's on the shelves, right? The trade backs are in my room, and the hardcovers are in the living room.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But
the workroom and the display room.
What I got from this read is one, I definitely appreciated it more. Is it my Legion? No, but I want to read on. I'm gonna go and try to read the entire run. Even while I'm reading, because if I do one comic a week, I'm not getting to the Threeboot until I'm in my 90s, I think. So.
Right. Exactly. It takes forever.
But I like the character development. That there is character development. I don't like some of the characters, the changes to them. I really, I'm gonna wait and see what I feel about Sunboy. I liked Sunboy being a little more cocky.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's a little more stiff.
Yeah, Sunboy was done very well here, I thought, because he was kind of the he was portrayed as somebody who was there to please his parents. Right, he was there at the Legion on behalf of his parents because they were big supporters and they were kind of hippies, right? In this world, it's teens versus adults, and in this case, the Morgnas, so Sunboy's parents, were like hippies and they were very much in support of this youth movement. And then after that, of course, he decides that he wants to kind of make his own way. So he has this moment of wanting to quit, and Cosworth Boy just tells him, no, you can't do it. I need you right now. But eventually he does end up kind of making his own way.
But okay, so that makes sense. I guess that makes sense. They're building new characters, and I think I want to give this. I'll always give Waid the benefit of the doubt, because I mean, now that I've gotten it I'm rereading it again, and I was about halfway through 12 at my lunch break, and then I had to go. I get off work early, so I hadn't finished before we started. I reread at 12, but I liked because when 1 through 6 arcs and gets you to the tipping point, of this cause that's been introduced, this youth movement, and I'm always big on reading art. When you reevaluate something, you have to not only reevaluate. I'm reading something that's 15 years old.
Yeah, 17, 15, something like that.
Yeah, okay, 15 years old. I got to think about when it was written, because you get it because of what it's written. Then you also have to think about how you're absorbing it now. 2 years after the George Floyd riot.
Me Too.
All these movements that are more youth, and I'm now the old guy.
Right.
I'm a grandpa age. So I have to kind of go, I think when I read this 15 years ago, I was like why is this middle-aged white guy writing kids?
Yeah, exactly.
And now I'm reading it and I think, man, he understood it better than I did at 35.
In some ways, I think. I mean, there's lots of weird things. I mean, and I agree with you, is that he's taken the characters, kind of distilled them to their powers, but then kind of made this overlay on their personalities that's vastly different from either of the two previous.
It has none of that 60s or 50s optimism.
Yeah, and not only that, but they're amped up, and I guess the reasoning behind this from a writer's perspective, I guess, is that they're teenagers, right? So they're going to be hormone driven and willing to jump into bed at the drop of a hat, right? But because there's a lot of that's discussed in the books as well, which is kind of weird. I mean, there's been sexuality in the Legion, since Cockrum, right? That's since the Grell days, right?
Yeah.
Was when that really started to pop in. But now it's kind of explicit, not explicit in that way, but they're very much talking about, Ayla very much talks about how she has been with many of the guys on the team, which is kind of an interesting angle to pursue. I thought that was kind of odd. And you have somebody like Ultra Boy, who in this version I don't think he's not portrayed very well at all. So I said
don't
online
get it.
somewhere.
I mean, I don't get what they're doing with him. I don't really. I just.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to mess Joe up, and
yeah, and I mean, I guess he's trying. You know, I think what Waid is trying to do here is to be okay. You have these characters with certain power sets or certain roles on the team, and how do you amp that up to a more extreme level, right? So, you know, you have Ayla, who's very attractive, but she's also very flighty because she's lighter than air, right? And you have Cosmic Boy, who's the leader, so he's really stoic and you know, and all that stuff, and you have Ultra Boy, who can do anything he wants, literally, right? And so how do you take somebody like that and then turn him into an extreme personality? I just don't like the way he did that with him specifically. I wrote online recently that I felt sorry for Ultra Boy fans in the reboot because, I mean, Joe's a dick, just to put it bluntly.
Yeah,
and he never came across that way before, really.
No, he didn't. He was the good guy. He was the friend that everybody leaned on.
Right.
That's why him and Tina were a good couple.
Yes.
You know, and that they were the example to others that were coupled because, you know, Shady and Mon-El. Shady, you know, Mon-El was a little. He did what Shady wanted in the Silver Age. I think she's more the power dynamic of that couple.
Right. Sure.
You know, and Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad, he's the average guy that got the smartest girl in the room to fall in love with him, and he knows it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got lucky. I got the prettiest and the smartest woman here, and I'm just gonna, because one thing I liked in the Giffen Levitt is when he becomes leader. I think Levitz goes, when he won that election, he goes, this guy's not qualified to be a leader, so we're going to have him fail at it.
Yeah. Which is a fascinating thing to read. It was great.
It was great because he all of a sudden Dream Girl comes to front and center to the book, and you're like, why are you using, oh, wait a minute. You get her. Of course. Yeah. You get her, and we're all dumb because none of us saw that. This makes perfect sense.
Of course, now you contrast what you're just saying there with this Threeboot where you have Cosmic Boy, who has a crisis of leadership. So we're dumped into this. We're literally dumped. It's like an in media res.
We're like situation. In the last third of a novel.
Yeah,
you're dumped right into it. All this stuff has happened.
The Legion has been around for 2 years at this point, and we're kind of tracking the story of Invisible Kid, who's just brand new to the team because he's the kid who jumped out the window in that Prelude story, and then met with the Legion and flew off, and. There's a big crisis going on in the Legion. It's fractured, right? I mean, he has the infamous third issue, right, which is not actually infamous. It's quite iconic. It's the issue number 3 of this run is very much what I think about when I think of the Threeboot because, it's that issue with Triad on the cover or a Triplicate Girl, showing my reboot bias there.
It is a better name. Triad is such a better name.
So Triplet Girl is there on the cover, and it has, it's the one that tells her story about she was the last survivor on a planet, and she ended up surviving by triplicating and rebuilding her civilization.
I love that.
It's such a great story.
It makes more sense than all these weird planets where everybody had a superpower.
Right.
Which was,
But it's also tragic, right? Because you get to the point where she goes to, she leaves and joins the Legion for a year and has all these adventures, but then comes back and then nobody wants to talk to her because she's shunned by her own society, which is, kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it also has like that weird scene where Ultra Boy is driving one of her around and says, what's the line? I'll ruin you for all women in 30 minutes or something like it, or for all other men in 30 minutes or something to that effect. I'm like, okay, that does not age well in the age of Me Too.
Oh no. What I liked about Legion when written well, that is, you kind of remember that Saturn Girl was made leader in the 1960s.
First, yeah, she was one of the first leaders, and she was great at it.
She was the first one we saw be elected.
Yep.
Because someone asked, it's like, because the elections don't start until like Shooter era.
something like that. I don't remember specifically.
I voted in a few. I always voted for
Okay.
Element Lad when he finally won because he came in second like 4 times in a row.
Lots. That was the running joke. So do you know if she was elected
by the
leader
fans.
by fans?
And I think it was very much due to the fact that Levitz and Giffen were using her. Yeah. And I think, and I knew, and I got to say this, hanging out, I worked in a comic shop in high school. That was my job. And yeah, well, and I had a lot of older friends. I went to the house of the couple that owned it, and there were a lot of women that were Legion fans.
Sure.
And read it because of Supergirl. And then when Crisis happened, they were pitchforks and torches.
Sure.
And stuff like that. But there was, I think Legion, we don't hear about, I mean, I would read the letter pages. I miss letter pages.
And this run has digital, or
I love that. I like Starboy and Light Lass.
And Ayla. Yeah.
I love
Absolutely.
it. I love
it. Those were the I saw that first one in the first. I guess it was who was it? It was I think Cam and Cosmic Boy. It's great. I love that. It was so original. Such a great idea.
Oh, it is good. And I like Kitson, and sometimes I don't. I think sometimes I get burnout on Kitson. There was an era where he was doing a lot.
Yeah.
He did a JLA year 1, which I kind of liked.
Well, here I think he's really on point here.
I
really like it.
Yeah, I liked it more this time. I think when I read it the last time, I was kind of burned out because I'd read like his year 1 and something else.
Okay.
And he did something with Busick. A lot of Busick stuff's coming back. His indie stuff's coming back out because he's got he's back at Image with it. But I think with this is the first 6 is your setup, and the second half is the crap hitting the fan.
Yes.
And I think it really works. I think I remember why I like Waid a lot, because he does. You don't really see the fight. It's in flashback. It starts in one issue, and then you get into the next issue, and it's over. They're all coming back through the portal.
Right. Exactly.
And then you kind of get a flashback to it. It's like reading the Asimov novel. They talk about a space battle, and then they talk about what the people who went to it discussed the space battle instead of you witnessing the space battle.
Exactly. And then everything all hell breaks loose, right? Because that was what there were so many interesting things about that moment that you're talking about. So they come back from the battle. Everybody's saying, what's going on? Dream Girl all of a sudden can't see into the future. And we find out why in a few issues.
Yeah. I'd forgotten that, and I read it and went.
Me too.
I was I know she dies because Brainy gets really weird about it.
Yeah.
Because my buddy likes it. He goes because that's the one thing he likes about it is that Brainy is the only one who can see her because he's freaking grieving.
Into the future, yeah, right. In the future issues, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's all about grief, and I'm kind of going to keep going reading because I want to see that.
Right, and then me too. That's exactly kind of one of the reasons that I want to keep going as well. I want to see how that resolves itself because in that second issue, I think that spotlight's really on her. She makes this offhand comment about because they had a great relationship between those two characters, where Brainy is very dismissive of Nora just because of how she doesn't really take science seriously because she can just see into the future, and she has this great line of saying at the end, you'll feel different when we're married or something like that. So then you get to the point in issue 10, I guess it is, where Terra Firma essentially destroys the Legion stronghold.
Oh my God, yeah.
And which in an amazing spread.
It is it's really a dynamic, and it's what I like is it's dynamic storytelling in multiple panels.
Yes.
And you can follow it. It's not just the aftermath.
Right.
Which
is important to have, and we get that too, which is great because it's important. And so you have this whole arc of Dream Girls. All of a sudden she can't understand why she can't see into the future. Everybody's confused, and then you have the little moment of Projector coming in, right? At this point, Orlando has been destroyed by Terra Firma, and she's just coming into her powers, and she notices that Elysian, who is the one of the big bads, has Bryn Londo's duster jacket on.
Yeah.
And she gets freaked out about that. And of course, he's this smarmy villain who is a really good bad guy because you love to hate him. And then he's the one that sets off the chain of events that really propels the next several issues through, I think, 13 or 14, where the big fight happens, and Dream Girl dies, and all kinds of crazy things.
What is Volume 2 of the hardcover in the trade backs? Is it the first? Are they 6 issues in each one?
I think the first one is the first 6, and then the second one has to be like the next 7 or 8, because the story really ends, because Elysian doesn't get defeated as part of the battle until I want to say issue 13, which is where Atom Girl, or Shrinking Violet, one of my other favorite characters.
Yeah, the one that they keep telling the Invisible Kid is a hoax. Exactly.
Which was kind of a cool little.
Well, I like that Colossal
there.
Boy's a giant who shrinks to 6 feet.
Yeah. and he never lets you forget about it.
No. I think they really capture him. And I was never a big Colossal Boy fan until.
Me neither.
Until Levitz Giffen, and they screwed him when they did all that damage to him by him. I finally get Shrieking Violet to love me, and then it's not Shrinking Violet.
Not her.
Yeah, really creepy. And that again, where there are ramifications of what happens, that she's in that bubble on Imsk.
Yeah, absolutely. She comes out as a totally different character. I've always said that those are the Violet prior to Levitz and the Violet after, completely different people.
But it's all earned.
100%.
All earned. And her relationship with a Light Lass.
Yeah. It's a special thing. I think that's one of the most enduring things about that era. And like you said early on, right, is that you have these relationships that form over time in the Legion. And the Shrinking Violet and Lightning Lass relationship is very special, because it's enduring. It's not flighty like a lot of the other ones were. I mean, it's like on par with the Garth Imra relationship.
It just is. They don't, they're just together. I mean, editorially, there's a cowardice because of when it was written.
Yeah.
They just couldn't say they were gay, and
right.
They were together. Yep. But Levitz and Giffen have them together. And I know,
absolutely.
I don't find it as problematic as other people do. I find it actually kind of endearing that they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish they could do more, because nowadays they would sell the book based on it.
Sure, exactly. And that's kind of a little bit of a, not frustrating, but I guess it's a disappointing thing that, all throughout the Threeboot, Threeboot, as far as I can tell, doesn't touch any of those kinds of issues or relationships. The reboot never really did. It skirted it, but it never really had the same kind of thing. Then, of course, you get down into what we call the retro reboot, right, which is the, whatever pre-New 52 was, right, where they actually show them, again in a relationship, but they're holding hands and whatnot. But that's about as far as you get.
Yeah, that's another thing I've got to reread. I have it all. I made sure I had kept the issues. It's Levitz. But his hand. It's like I'm going. How editorially are your hands tied? What are they telling you cannot do? Because this cannot be choice.
It was some very odd choices around those things. So, but it is what it is. So.
Yeah, no, I read it and was like, I really don't know what. Are you being told not to do stuff, or are you? Because I would have just, you're Paul Levitz. They're not. You can do whatever you damn want.
Exactly. So,
But I like where this is. I like where it's got. I'm up to 12, and I've liked what I've got. I think I'm gonna keep reading because I want to. I mean, what do you get of this arc through, say, 12?
Go ahead.
Well, no. I mean, is it something to read in a trade? Does it work more kind of as a single piece? Because we digest comics so much differently.
Yeah. To me, I think it's the first 13 to 14 issues work best, because you have the the introduction of the characters, right? And each issue, it should be noted, right? Only of those first 6, only focus on maybe 4, maybe 5 characters max, and then only maximum of 4 characters in any given scene.
Yeah, because
right?
it's not until like 11 where when they show everybody in it, it's like 12 people.
Exactly.
And they say they're 20 members.
Yeah.
That there are 20 members in the team, but and I think Waid was a Levitz Giffen fan, because I remember Levitz Giffen would tell stories with 5 or 6 characters.
Yeah.
And then the next arc would have maybe 1 or 2 of the ones in the one before, but have all told they knew how to do the 2018, which is hard.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And I mean, it's because you have to have a story where all these people have something to do. And, unless you can just kind of have just a giant battle scene and have, describe what's going on for the illustrator, it's very difficult. So being able to have that setup by using those, smaller groups of characters at a time, you get to learn who the characters are, for one thing.
Yeah.
And then, like, for example, I mean, one of the best issues of this run, of this 12, I want to see if I can find which one it is, because it's so good. I want to say it's issue 6 or 7, where the scene is several Legionnaires are going to Kolu, because Kolu is the next world to be devastated and attacked by terra firma after Orando. And you have this wonderful moment of just a very innocent setup scene where they're all on the cruiser and they're heading towards Brainy's home planet. And Cam, this version of Chameleon, whenever he senses a new life form, his antenna just involuntarily spring out. And it's because Ayla happens to be eating a fruit that he's never encountered. So this scene happens. And then you go through this whole, several character moments among which you have Brainiac 5 kind of deriding and being very derisive of Ayla and her powers and her personality. And then we come to Kolu, we find out that it's devastated, that a big chunk of Koluans, including his mother, are kind of zombified. And then they go through and they're out in the middle of nowhere, and Ayla notices Chameleon's antennae pop out of nowhere. So she comes to the conclusion that there's something around here that we can't see. So she causes everything to kind of come up and be this big, crazy mass of stuff that comes together. And sure enough, that flushes out the big villain, Lemnos, out of hiding. And so they're able to kind of get a better idea of what's going on. And so this Lemnos character can essentially make people forget. Right, it has some connotation to Greek mythology, I think, but there's his power is that he makes people forget that he was ever there, so he can manipulate all kinds of things. But that element of Ayla being able to pick up on that small plot element or small detail at the very beginning of the book and have it pay off at the end, and kind of show Brainy up at the same time, was really, really well done. I mean, it's such a well written story.
And I think there are a lot of those in this book that it is. Yeah. I read it I bashed it like I always tease bash, because everybody is every it's, I say in Doctor Who, every doctor is someone's first doctor.
Right.
So you can't
Same with Legion.
It's same with Legion. You're and it depends on when you. I mean, I started in Cockram Grail land and went backwards and forwards at the same time.
Right.
Because my brother and me picked up a bunch of comics. We would pick them up at, I own a copy of Adventure 247.
Oh, wow.
I found it in a dime box in 1979 at my comic shop, and it was a decade later before I figured. My brother went, "You know what this is, you idiot?" I went, "What? It's a reprint of the First Legion." "No, it is the First Legion, you moron. You didn't read the..." He goes, "Didn't you read the legal disclaimer?" I went, "No."
Oh, wow.
It didn't have a cover. It was 10 cents, and I still have it. I kept it.
Nice.
I thought about slabbing it. It'd be at 0. See, I'm not going to read it again. I've got like 7 different I can read 247.
It's there just for historical reference.
But I like that. I think this time through I found that Waid has a plan.
Yeah.
It is. He's not a lazy writer. And I kind of thought I like I said, it's like, why is this guy writing kids? And this time I'm reading it, was like, you kind of understand. Do you have? I mean, he probably had. Maybe he had kids at the time he was writing. His kids were a certain age, or
I don't know. It's a good question, but because
why is he writing? Why was this big on his plate to write a book about teenagers trying to show the adults that they were failing?
It's a good question. I mean, he's because Waid is very good at plotting things out over a long, long period of time, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't get lost.
Exactly, because one of the things, obviously, right? We haven't really talked about that. We talked about the reboot earlier. Waid was instrumental in 0 Hour and the reboot when it first started. For that first year,
he was an editor then, wasn't he?
He was actually for the Legion. Casey Carlson was the editor of Legion of Superheroes back in the reboot time frame. He was a good editor. He was great. It was fantastic. And now, I guess Waid at that point, I guess, was just a consulting writer for that, right? And he wrote some of the issues as well. And but what they did, right, because it's very well documented in several oral histories that Waid and Tom Pyre and the entire writing crew essentially holed up, and they did two things. They figured out how they're going to get through 0 Hour, and that's where they came up with the concept of the reboot,
which dovetails perfectly out of the Batch 28. It flows perfectly.
Yeah, and then then they plotted out that entire first year of the reboot, right, which culminates in that big battle with the Daxamites at the end there. So they and of course at that time, right, you're talking about 2 books, so that's double the amount of issues they had to track over that amount of time. And they did that wonderfully, right? And here it's a very similar thing. It's just with one book. It's much more dense book. It's longer, 31 pages for most of these things.
Yeah, that's weird. Was this in a high page count?
Yeah, because most of the Legion stories back in the day were like in the upper to mid 20s, like 23 pages, something like that. Yeah. Where this thing is like these are in the 30s, right? And so a lot more story with for what you're getting in those pages.
God, I love it.
I think it's great. It's fantastic.
I still buy floppies, but sometimes I'm like going, could I have like 4 more pages, please?
Exactly.
I just gave you $5. Can I have 4 more pages, please?
Even still, reading some of these digitally, it's you flip through them and you're like, I'm done.
Oh my God, yeah. See, that's my get off my lawn. Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Kids? My day, comics had words.
I know. It's just more. I just want more for my money. Is all.
That's all I want. I'm a big. During the pandemic, at one point, I started buying up 100-page giants from the 70s.
Oh, nice.
Well, that was a lot of my early. My brother, here, leave me alone for 40. Here's 3 hours of my life back, you little brat.
I had a few of those back in the day. I don't remember. They're mainly the Star Wars ones, and I don't remember.
I've got 3 Legions, and I got like 3 because Justice League had a bunch. My first experience reading. I'm a huge Justice Society guy.
Right.
I like.
As we know.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. But it's I read the team ups, and then I would read like the later ones, and then when I bought them and I started reading the early ones where it's all basically solo stories with a theme and a bookend on either side. I saw my first Alex Toth, and stuff like that. So, but I had the Legion ones were good too because you could read. I love a good Silver Age Superboy comic, especially if it's drawn by Kurt Swan.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, okay, and there's a lot of Swan Klein. Which I'm a huge fan of, but I think with this is I think you're right on that. I don't want to figure out what. Hold on, let me figure out what I'm going to say. I asked why a guy who was probably in his 40s. He's older. Yeah. I mean, Waid's older than us, or is he?
I think he is, but not by all that much.
Yeah, maybe 5 years. So he's like in his early to mid 60s now. So he'd have been about 40. Are you Googling him?
Yes.
Let's find out. He
is your friend.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I'm.
Yeah, he's 60 years old.
Wow.
Yep.
He's our age because I'll be 58 this year. I'm on that. I'm lamenting that I'm closer to 60 than I am to 55.
Yeah. I'm more closer to the 50 side on that, but not.
Oh my God.
So,
it's all right. It's all right. I
yeah.
just still think I'm 35 until my hip goes, no, you're not.
Me too.
I live on a third floor. I'm on a third story walk up. It's sometimes like, oh crap.
Yeah, I have a 4-story townhouse that I'm renting right now, and it's a lot of steps.
Oh my God. I just think I absorbed it differently because I'm thinking about it post Me Too. I'm thinking about that I'm reading earlier Legion, and I'm talking a lot of Legion more than I've talked. I mean, the podcast started as just a generic superhero team podcast.
Yeah.
But I was like, my goal is to one time have enough video views on YouTube because of the audio that's streaming and do some video stuff that, I have an agent who works for me. He makes $2,000 a month on YouTube talking gardening as mental health.
Wow.
Yeah, he's good at it. He really is good at it. He's really good at it. And I would be able to do this if my wife's like, if you can get paid being a nerd,
sure,
you'd probably be much happier than having to go into work during, all this craziness.
Absolutely.
So my goal is like just enough to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But I like that the first thing I said is I haven't done a Legion reread. Will people listen to me? It's weird. I like having a guest. It's so much easier. But to just give my viewpoint on and to reflect on them, how I'm feeling when I'm reading them.
Yeah.
Because some of them I haven't read in 25 years or something. And some
Absolutely.
I haven't. This last Superman one, I had never read that one. And I'm using different sources to tell me which ones I should read and shouldn't read. Because the archive is almost strictly, they're like, the first archive is 2/3 of it is guest spots. It's all guest spots. So, I mean, it's making me reading Waid's, the Threeboot now is making me go, wow, this is a little bit more like the Giffen. I see some of the Giffen Levitts in it, in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I see the simplicity of the art is very, and I don't mean that in a bad way, it's more reminiscent of Kurt Swan than it is of Keith Giffen, because Keith Giffen, remember, he went, wow, I'm in full Giffen mode. And I like full Giffen mode. It worked for what stories he was telling at the end.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
right.
It was like
with that blocky. Yeah,
that weird. I love his stuff. He did that in Farrier 5 mini a few years back, and the story made no sense, but I love the art.
Right.
And Ambush Bug and stuff like that, when he started to experiment with his art. When he had all the, I can do whatever I want now, I'm Keith Giffen.
Exactly.
But I see all these elements, and I think I appreciated it more, and I mean, I'm going to continue to read it. I think I may have been too harsh on it. Or is it just the perfect time to read this right now?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think for me, and this is, we talked earlier about how, kind of Gail Simone wrapped up the reboot. And then
I love Gail Simone too, so I'm kind of.
Oh, I do.
I sold all my comics years ago, and I got rid of all my Secret Six, which was a mistake.
Yeah, man.
Oh no, because I'm a big Ostrander Suicide Squad, and it was
okay.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gail, Gail, you have all those trades on your shelf. I know you do, and you've reread them because I've reread.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, so funny little bit of trivia. So I guess about a year ago on Twitter, she actually had mentioned that she did not know when she was hired actually to run that, just to write that, I guess that 4-issue series or storyline that wrapped up the reboot, the Legion title. She did not know that was going to be the end of the reboot. She didn't understand that. She didn't know. She wasn't told when she signed off on doing the work.
Because there's no hard end. It's just the story's over.
Yeah, the story's over and the title's over. And then the next thing you see of the Reboot Legion is this is that Teen Titans crossover that they did. So for me, like I said, I'm a big Reboot fan. Even into the parts of the DNA run that I didn't like, I still like them. Right? It's
there's
like
some
pizza.
elements.
There's no bad pizza.
Legion World I liked. I love their floating headquarters. I liked Gear and Chuck Tane. Yeah. I will say their version of Chuck is spot on. It's everything I like about old Chuck. But I remember Chuck as middle-aged Chuck. He was like the dad.
The trainer. The trainer of the academy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I loved all that stuff too, and I thought that Yeah, and oh my gosh, Abnett Landing, they could build a world like you wouldn't believe. I mean,
Yeah.
they put so much great detail in there, and so all that stuff all of a sudden with the wave of a hand was gone, right? I'm like, oh my god, these guys helped me through so many so many bad times in my life in the '90s, and they just got replaced by this pack of jerks, right? That's kind of how I looked at them. I just saw them as a bunch of, kind of whiny complainers. But of course, then you read the story and it's like, oh, this is actually a really good plot to this. Even though these characters, I'm not warm up to these characters yet, but the plot of this story is pretty tight. It's really good.
Yeah, and Waid writes it through the Supergirl stuff?
Yes. Yeah, he...
when Supergirl leaves, is that when Shooter comes back in and does the arc about the descendants of the Justice League?
Roughly. I have to, because I was thumbing through some of those issues when I moved back over the last summer, and it's somewhere around that because here's a little bit of interesting, fun stuff from DC lore. As we know, right, there was the Jeff Johns Lightning Legion, right, that was being run, across JSA and JLA, right, during that time period.
Yeah.
And,
was that Robinson writing that?
He may have been part of that.
He was writing Justice League at that time because he had that weird lineup.
Because it was several writers. It was Jeff Johns. It was the other writer I'm blanking on right now. I can't think of it. He writes a lot of novels now. So that was happening, right? This classic Legion from pre-Crisis was doing all this stuff in the DC universe. Mark Waid wasn't told about this until right when they were going to print. And there's several interviews where you can kind of hear his views for that. But I think that might have been a contributing factor for him leaving, right? And then Jim Shooter coming in.
Because I'm not a Jeff Johns apologist. I understand why people get sick of him.
Yeah.
Because he has a little bit of Claremont's disease.
Yeah.
He overwrites.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The first half of his GL run is some of the best GL I ever read. In the back end, I never read it because I was like, dude, can you take a freaking breath?
Right.
Can we have an arc that's not the end of the universe?
Yeah, exactly.
But I did like the Legion on Three Worlds, and the best part of Final Crisis was the Legion mini.
See, I will. I mean, overall, it was nice to see all the Legions in action, but I actually didn't like it as much because I thought it ended up becoming more of a Superboy and other character story. It was like the Legion was kind of a guest in their own story in some ways.
Yeah, that's true. I thought I'm gonna have to reread. I don't have the trade for I still have the issues for the Crisis part, but I do have the hardcover for the Legion of Three Worlds. We finally got Perez drawing a Legion story.
Yeah, which that alone, right?
Like he never did a run on that.
Yeah, unbelievably. So to have that was great.
Yeah, because I'd like to have seen him do a run. Yeah. I'd like to have seen him and Levitz work together. I think that would have been a good pairing.
Me too.
Because Levitz would have given him things to do. Here's something interesting to do, George. Please draw it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, overall, I think I have a better take on this now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm I'm adapting to reading digitally. I'm not, and I do it on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I got a new Amazon Kindle pad, and you can't load those apps onto it, which is terrible.
Well, the Kindle app, so you can read the comiXology stuff, but
I'm not. I've heard that's
I don't want to go down there.
I've heard. Ron from Fantastic Comic Fan and me. He goes, oh, it's like the last time I talked to him, I said anybody goes, oh, just don't worry about it. It's
yeah. I read the latest issue of the Justice League versus the Legion. I guess it was issue 3. Using the app, and it was such a painful experience.
I know. I've gotten rid of all my. I wasn't buying any Marvel and DC because I have the app, and anything since 75's on there. But right. I think I'm going to tell them to pull me a 3 and just give me these because I'm going to get those in. I would like to have. I'm looking to. Every once in a while, I go on eBay and go, how much can I get a whole set of the Waid trades?
Right.
Because I'd like to have, I want to have my Legion, because I used to reread it all the time. Literally, I used to reread it, do a reread once a year. It's, and I didn't do that with other books. I did it with like Claremont X-Men for a while, and I've done a once or twice in my life gone back to Avenger 1 and read up to whatever point, but that was never past. That was up through the Roger Stern stuff, which is, I think, the last of the really great that awful Heroes Reborn garbage.
I don't think I ever read that. So.
Oh, it is. It's awful. And the only good thing to come out of it is you get the Busiek Perez return, and you go, oh, okay. Thank you. Sane people.
It was worth it.
Well, thank you. I have 5 years of really good. And then, Jeff Johns did actually, he had an underrated run of Avengers, and it was canceled to give the book to Bendis.
Okay.
Because he understood it. I mean, it was okay. You're just doing Avengers stories. Thank you. And you're doing what I like in a team book is bring in someone who shouldn't be in a comic team, and make them a great member of it. There's that certain thing, and that's why with Legion characters, I think I like Element Lad.
Yeah.
Because he was dull. No one else liked him, so I'm gonna like him. I'm an A's fan. I grew up outside of DC and Baltimore, and I'm an Oakland A's fan because I'm show my age that I saw the Senators play at Municipal Stadium before it was called RFK.
Right.
When Ted Williams was their manager, the year before they went to Texas.
Oh my God.
And I asked my dad. My dad goes, "Who are you gonna root for?" I said, "Well, I was born in Oakland. I'll root for Oakland." He went, "Oh, okay." And then he didn't tell me they weren't in Oakland until I was 2.
Right.
And I was living in D.C. So, but I picked these weird things. That's what I liked about Legion is that you could have these. There are so many secondary characters. The other day I posted a picture of Timberwolf and Block manning the monitoring board. Because
I saw that.
That was such a good relationship.
It really was. They had a lot of good banter. Yeah.
It was perfect, and it's real characters. Yeah. And I think if I read more of this, I may find it. I mean, I don't know who my favorite Threeboot Legionnaire might be. I think I'm leaning toward an Invisible Kid.
Well, he's the one that you're supposed to have, I think, the most in common with, right?
Yeah, he's the most like us.
Yeah, he's the new kid. He's trying to understand what's going on around him, right? So we're very much, he's very much our cipher, I guess, with regards to this title.
I'm a big Jacques fan. I mean, Invisible Kid was dead when I started reading.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. He had already. Well, wait a minute. No, he died. I went back to a couple issues and then he died. I read his death.
Okay. I was gonna say it's about that time frame.
It's about that time frame. But I bought Annual 1 again during the pandemic as a comfort comic.
Okay.
Because it's one. I think it's my absolute.
Oh, you mean like the Levitt's written?
Yes.
That is probably the best, most classic, most iconic Legion Annual. I think that's out there. I mean, it's the one that really sets the tone.
It does. And if you want to say what is Levitt's Giffen Legion about, that's all of it. This is every little bit of it, and it's the perfect single issue comic.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd
agree with that.
You understand it even if you haven't read the last 30 years of it.
Right.
And you want to read the next batch, which is the Great Dark. And that's why I think in the big deluxe Great Darkness Saga trade is you get the 5 before that and the 5 after that, and it's right in the middle, and it is so important. And it's so important to so much of the Legion after it.
Yeah. And
it gives them the idea in the reboot to have a Computo kind of character. I like Jacques' sister.
Yeah.
Later on, yeah. So
so I guess she becomes like Computo, but it's in the SW6 batch. So it's Legionnaires, but it's prior to the reboot.
The reboot, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just there's so
I really
much
like
good
it
stuff.
too.
Yeah, I bought the 5 years later hard, and I haven't read it. I've thumbed through it and gone, but it's dense. I'm like going, crap, all this happened.
There's a lot of stuff.
Oh my God. So,
and then you get a lot of background stuff too.
Oh no, and I'm one of those ones that likes. I got in the mail yesterday the Doom Patrol Bronze Age Omni, which is all the stuff from Showcase up till the issue before Morrison took over.
Wow.
And on Free Comic Day, I bought the first Morrison volume. So I want to kind of do. I got that Doom Patrol with the Steve Lytle art. He did the first 4 or 5 issues of that series that Cooperberg wrote. And
he's good. Yeah.
Oh no, I love his Legion. His Legion is
absolutely
stunning. But in the back is all like the secret files and so it's a nice. It's like I'm saving. I'm gearing toward the Omni. So I'm gonna have to. I keep looking at the Legion ones that is it 3 of them, and that's all of the stuff that's in the first 13 archives? Does that get to Cockrum and
the three Silver Age Omnis stop just before Cockrum and Grell.
So it's the first 10, about the first 10 archives, because they've done 4 hardcovers between that and Great Darkness. So basically, they would be in the archives, but they just didn't call them archives. They just is it?
Oh, well, there's the archives from like 20 years ago, and then there's, I guess, the current Omnis that they've released. So
yeah,
I was thinking about
the
three
Omnis are smaller. Yeah. They're only about 10. They're only about 150 pages, 200 pages. So, but they've done 4 hardcovers after their last archive that gets you to Great Darkness Saga, and that is pretty much a Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff in there.
Well, it's the only Roy Thomas that I think is terrible. His Legion is just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Space pirates and
Octopus Man.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for being on. We're going to wrap this up. I know you got to go. I got to go feed my dog. Is harassing my wife to feed her. But
I'm getting all kinds of phone calls from home. Where are you?
Talking comics.
I know, right?
And they're going, better him than me. My wife just kind of glazes over and gets lost, except when she needs me to explain a Marvel movie to her.
Right. Exactly. So quick fun story.
Uh-huh.
My wife made my daughter and I create a Star Wars timeline to understand where like the Mandalorian fits with the new Obi-Wan show, with all this other stuff that's going on. So with all of Star Wars, to understand what movie happens when.
Oh my God!
And it's in front of our television, so it's pretty.
Oh no, that's great. I like that. I'm looking forward to. Was it next week we get
Obi-Wan?
Yeah. Maybe he won't be. Maybe Hayden won't be as creepy, but since he's not being groomed.
Yeah,
I watched that recently and went, "This is uncomfortable." You're grooming him, and you forgive him for being a fascist. So Jim, I would love to have you back on to talk more Legion.
Anytime. Time and date. I'm there.
Oh, cool. Thank you for inviting me on the Discord. It's very nice.
Absolutely.
You and Jennifer DeRossi, who wrote the Gardner Fox, she's got me on hers too.
Oh, good.
Nice. Today was Gardner. Hey, folks, we're recording this, and this will post sometime tomorrow. But today is the birthday of Gardner Fox, the creator of the superhero team.
It's awesome.
I'm a huge Fox fan, and she wrote an amazing book. Check it out, folks. Forgotten All-Star, because me and her talk. I've talked to my brother. He's going, "What about Jack?" I said, "If there's a Mount Rushmore comics, it's Jack, Stan, Fox, and you could pick 2 others." But
and I have when I got those Legion Silver Age Omnibus editions a year ago, I also received an Adam Strange one. I haven't cracked it yet, and I need to crack it. I've been dying to do that.
I posted a bunch of things, and someone replied to my thread with, "Well, what about this?" I said, "There's a lot of stuff I didn't post. Like, he created Dr. Fate."
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
wrote all of most. It was him and Alfred Bester, the famous science fiction writer, wrote all the Starmans. And I'm a Starman fan. I'm one of those fans. Like, I'm a Doctor Who fan. Matt Smith's my doctor. It was something later in my life went, okay, no, wait a minute. All of you before, get the back of the back. This guy's it. And James Robinson, Starman, really changed how I view comic books in a lot of ways. I think it is one of those masterpieces. And which is sad, because I buy everything he does, and half the time I'm not as enthusiastic about it. His Justice League is entertaining, but he picked a lineup that no one cared about.
Right.
He had Congarilla and 70 Starman in it. I thought it was neat, but I'm a nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
But folks, Jim, thank you again for coming on. I will be probably inviting you back sooner than later, because
happy to do it, Russ.
We're the same generation of comics, and I think we'd have more things. And I think I will probably read another arc, and we may revisit the Threeboot from time to time, so I don't have to. I can cover it well before my 90th birthday. I just realized I'm stuck in. I'm going to be nothing but Joe Forte art pretty much for the next year and a half. Because I started
you do one a week,
I went, wow, man, he drew a lot.
Hey, it's R.T. Fleming of the fantastic Comic Fan Podcast. Out now is episode 35, and we're talking about Neil Adams. I've teamed up with a nice selection of fellow comic fans like Ross Aitken of the Stop Let's Team Up podcast, Adam Lalenta of Indie Comic Punk Taco, and Eric Isaacson of the Long Box Review. Making the first appearance on the podcast is Alan Stewart's Attack of the 50-Year-Old Comic Book Blog. You can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and all major platforms. So please, give it a try, because it's a different podcast. How different? You have to just try it out yourself and find out.
But folks, you can find us on the Twitter at JSA4E. That is JSA, the number 4, the letter E. And Jim, where can they find you on the Twitters?
Oh, on the Twitter, I am at JimboFett87. So JIMBOFETT, like Boba Fett 87, on the Twitter. And so while we're talking here, props to all the Twitter fam on the Legion side out there, and you guys know who you are. Yeah, it is a
nice. I have 3 Twitter feeds because of my podcast, and I am. Twitter can be a very scary place, as the interwebs can be, but I think I've manipulated the. I am judicious with blocking and muting. Sometimes people I mute just because, your comic stuff's fine, but some of your other stuff is a little. And I had a couple Comic Gate guys pop up on my feed.
Yeah, they always seem to pop up every now and then. And
and then I'm like, I can't do it, guys. Yes, I am. When I call me a social justice warrior, I'm gonna probably say thank you and move on.
Exactly right.
All right, Jim. Thank you for coming, folks, and we look forward to you. Just remember, be safe, be kind, and read some comic books.